What is your take on the current constitution? Does it allow expropriation of land without compensation?
If you look at the extent of state subsidy that may have been given to a white farmer in the past, I've read different arguments, and I don't know the answer. I'd really need to hear argument on it.
So will it be?
Commissioners ask only 2 questions. 2 questions per commissioner per candidate.
Judge Mlambo didn't ask 2 questions. I was here. I listened to him. He didn't ask 2 questions. Unless there's some right reserved for other commissioners.
Commissioner Malema, we are wasting time debating how many questions to be asked. Just ask your question and keep it as brief as.
Will it be unconstitutional to pass a bill which allows the state to be a custodian of the land?
I don't know the answer, and
The CJ asked, how many reserved judgments do you have? You said 5. But I saw somewhere there Nadel said 7, so I just wanted to reconcile that.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Malema, and you're quite correct. There is a discrepancy in the comments. The GCB indicated that it was 5 at the time that I submitted my form, and I think it was Nadel pointed to the correct number at that time, which was 7. So that was an error in the GCB's comment, I think. So the correct position was at the time that I submitted my form, there were 7 reserved judgments, but as I sit here now, none of those are outstanding, and there's only 1 new reserved judgment that's still within the 3-month period.
You cleared them for this purpose?
Sorry?
You cleared them for this purpose?
I always clear my judgments.
No, they were outstanding not so long ago, and before you come here, they are all cleared.
Well, I'll clear all of my judgments. I will pick up, I have quite a heavy role, and I will be accumulating judgments all the time. So the approach that we need to follow is always to clear our judgments.
What is your take on the current constitution? Does it allow expropriation of land without compensation?
Commissioner, I do need to be guided in some measure. I would like to answer that question, but I do need to be guided in some measure by the Chief Justice, because I need to be cautious about it, because it's an issue that can come before us. So the approach I adopted in my first interview was to indicate that I'm comfortable approaching it at a high level, but mindful that before I can ever make a decision on an issue of that sort, I would need to fully hear argument about from both sides, because it is a live issue and it will come before us. Chief Justice, are you comfortable with me proceeding?
Yes, in the same way you did the last time.
All right.
From
Thank
a
you,
high
Chief
level.
Justice. At a high level, yes.
Yeah.
And by prefacing what I say with that, I couldn't decide that without fully hearing argument. So my view, thank you, Commissioner. I mean, it's obviously a very important question that matters to a lot of South Africans, and there are, and it is going to have to be squarely decided by courts in one would hope in the relatively near future. As I see it, there can be no real debate about whether the Constitution properly applied permits of nominal compensation. I can't see how that's debatable, because even if one looks at the factors that are set out expressly in Section 25(3), even just by applying a mathematical formula, for example, if you look at the extent of state subsidy that may have been given to a white farmer in the past, and then you look at market value, or you can easily come up with a calculation that gets you to a zero balance. I think the more difficult debate is whether properly construed, the Constitution permits of 0 as opposed to nominal compensation. And there I've read different arguments, and I don't know the answer. I'd really need to hear argument on it. But I do think that there are, given our history, there are compelling reasons that the Constitution fully embraces why there should be departures from market value compensation.
So will it be within the Constitution?
You're on a bad question, and the agreement was 2 per commissioner.
Huh?
The agreement among the commissioners, which you know, it dates back even before I started chairing this body, is that commissioners ask only 2 questions. 2 questions per commissioner per candidate.
Oh,
yes.
Judge Mlambo didn't ask 2 questions. I was here. I listened to him. He didn't ask 2 questions. Unless there's some right reserved for other commissioners. I'm prepared to leave this question here, but in reality, if you go back to
JP
check the
Mlambo
record,
asked one question.
JP Mlambo did not ask.
Commissioner
questions.
Malema, we are wasting time debating how many questions to be asked. Just ask your question and keep it as brief as possible. But
Thank
that does not mean I'll be lenient with other commissioners.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to ask, will it be unconstitutional to pass a bill which allows the state to be a custodian of the land with the fully land use rights guaranteed, that no one loses anything, the state owns the land, and whatever remains, whatever is on the land remains in the pockets and the hands of those who are using that particular land, like we did with the minerals, and like we did with water. What's your take on that?
Thank you, Commissioner. I have to be I'm aware of the political debate, and I've followed the political debates, which I find, they're important debates, and they speak to matters that are very important to South Africans. I don't know the answer, and I haven't heard, to be honest, I haven't engaged it in a legal sense. I've thought about it in a political sense. So I haven't, the truthful answer is I haven't sat down and tried to work it out from a legal point of view. But I do think that if one just thinks about it from a, as one, and I think there may be differences. I'm just not thinking aloud, which perhaps I shouldn't do. The simple answer is I don't know the answer. I think the state can, at least in some cases, be a very useful modality to secure justice as a policy position, but that's just my own sense. I haven't thought through the legalities.
Thank you, CJ.
Judge Windel, you let me know when you've settled in.
I'm good, thank you, Chief Justice.
Are you comfortable?
Yes, I am, thank you.
How are you?
Nervous, but I'm good, thank you.
No need to be. We are pussycats.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
I did not know that you are from my neck of the woods. You were born in Lady Frey,
Yes,
so you are my home girl.
good to know.
Yeah. You did a BUris degree at the Northwest University and graduated in 1989. Then obtained an LLB through UNISA a few years later, which I gather you would have done part-time naturally, but whilst working because...
I did that, yes.
And you had started as a prosecutor directly after you graduated from the Northwest.
Yes,
And remained there until 1993, then worked your way up to the magistracy. You were a magistrate for 10 years?
20 years.
20?
Yes,
Oh, yes. And then you started acting as a judge in 2011 already?
that's correct. Yes, I was invited to participate in the mentorship program. So I attended a course in 2010, and then I was asked to come and act in 2011.
All right. And you did a term, I see, and then was invited back in 2013
That is correct.
for 2 terms now.
Yes,
And you were appointed permanently later that year, in July
of 2013.
of
yes.
2013.